You did.
That's the job.
It bugged you.
No, it's funny.
It did. I saw it bugged you here. Morgan and Amy both commented on how much that bugged you.
How do they know it bugged me?
Because we know Bob well enough to know that there's Bob and then there's Bob.
I guess it maybe did bother me and I didn't know.
It full on bothered you, and it was fucking. The cool thing was to see the community bust out and be like, "Hey, dude, eat a dick, fuck off." Because seriously, you need a fucking life. If that's again, you spent that much time to tell us this.
May have been trying to help. Yeah. I knew the voice thing, but the not being funny. That's a tough hit.
Well, yeah, you know what? Not every comedian has 100% followership, too. So that's the reality, is that some people like certain styles and some people don't. I hate you. I hate seeing your face come through that door. I hate hey there.
That's
but you know what? I get more emails about you than I get not about you. So there you go. I mean, people love you. So if one guy doesn't, fuck him.
All right. Fucking. Hey there, Bob from Oregon's Constant Gardener. Welcome to the OCG Fam Show to you, my YouTube buddies. What's going on? Let me know in the comments. We'll talk about it. It'll be fun. It's going to be great. We're here with Scott. We're doing viewer questions.
Yes, we are.
Allow me to retort. All right. First question is from Smoke Your Own. Hey, Bob. Saw this advertised on the Webernet as a flush. So he's talking about using Herculean Harvest, Aphrodite's Extraction, and SL F100 together. Someone's pushing that as a flush thing.
Flush.
Yeah. So what does the big kahuna think about it? Or can you answer it too? No, I can't. Just you. I could hazard a guess.
Oh, you've guessed it. You've seen it. Everybody does it. So
I think that's pretty.
What do I think about it? We promote it. A lot of people use it. A lot of people swear by it. But it really comes down to personal taste.
So let's just get into it a little bit because we got time. So how are the Herculean Harvest and the SL F100 working together in a final flush? How is the SL F100 making that better, if you can say?
I don't know. Ask Newton. That's his job.
See, that's what I'm saying.
To me, that's just another digester. So it's making this last bit of calcium phosphate enter into the flowering cycle, or into the flowers at the very end.
So this is the SL F100 is helping the Herculean to get into
just like it does throughout the entire stuff. Yeah, I mean, why would you take out that life form right at the end when you've been giving it to them the whole time? It's not essential because if you've been giving them SLF the entire run, then you have the microbes in there. They're not dead. You haven't killed them. So it just makes it more efficient at the very end to kind of harden up the fruit. The Aphrodite's carbon
that's the next question.
Will just make that simple carbons go into the plant and intensify the bricks, sweeten up the flowers, create more terpene profiles, more oil content.
So you're saying the Aphrodite's Extraction and the SLF100 are helping to make things more digestible to push it through the plant harder to get you more flushed at the end?
The Aphrodite's isn't helping things make more digestible.
No?
They are digested. Aphrodite's is completely SLF is the only microbe in this combo.
I gotcha, yeah.
So that's helping the Herculean Harvest go in more efficiently at the very end. Plus it's also going in and making sure there's not excess food sitting in the root zone, digesting that and helping them push out. So
okay.
It's really hit or miss. I mean, I do it that way. Many of our growers do it that way. And some guys hate it and say it tastes like shit and they taste bone meal. I've never tasted bone meal at the end of it. I've never tasted grape juice from watering in Welch's grape juice. So, it comes down to it. I think there's a placebo effect there. What I do know is that I get harder fruit, more solid, dense fruit at the end if I use Herculean Harvest up until the last one or two waterings. And then I just use water for one or two. Flush everything out.
There you go.
Yeah, I like it. I'd do it.
Jason! It's not Jason, it's Jason.
Jay, son.
I don't know how the bearded kahuna puts up with the bearded kahuna. We're taking the two things, we're putting them together.
We're just going pretty soon.
You're getting nickname creep here. It just gets bigger and bigger. Okay, how he puts up with it, but the info is super appreciated. And he recommend. He was probably talking about me. I don't know how.
I know you might want to double check his name too. It is probably the same guy.
It might be the same. Oh, wait a minute, because his name was Jason, wasn't he?
I think it was.
I don't think Jason likes me. I love him. He's a good guy, I think, but he just had some opinions. It's all good. He says, any recommendations on increasing terpene production?
Specifically, well, working with a couple of these bigger farms, what we've noticed is Triton's helps a lot. The amino acids in cartilage seem to bring out different terpenes that aren't normally there. Depends on the plant and the terpenes you're pulling out. But we notice the use of chaos as a tool to drive more uptake of the calcium, whether it's calcium from the cartilage, the bone meal, the calphos from the milk fats, the sugars. Using that chaos as that tool to get more into this plant, to make the plant assimilate more oils, more active ingredients, and in turn it just makes more terpenes. So the healthier this plant is, the more activated it becomes with these different proteins, these different enzymes, and these different types of amino acids. They're what are really converting that oils into these terpenes that make the aromas, the flavors.
So we're not seasoning and enhancing and flavoring these terpenes that are already there. We're actually producing.
We're not
more
adding
of it.
them.
Yeah,
we're just we're promoting the plant to promote themselves
to do more of that.
Yeah.
So it's about a healthier plant making more of what it makes.
Well, and then it's, not tricking it, but kind of pushing it with that chaos, because that chaos is going to push it harder to make it absorb more, to make more oil.
And that's because it's a super bountiful thing. It's doing more of everything that it does. And the terpenes are one of those things. Okay. Bart Johnson says, what about slurry test if you have one shot added to the soil? Now, we've talked about this before, but how did
we answer that?
I don't know. Well, the one shot doesn't have a lot of effect on the slurry test.
It will, though. I mean, it's going to be, there is an active ion exchange there. So when you put it in there, it's going to read higher. It's not going to, I mean, it's going to read higher, but can stay consistently higher. So if you're used to like 2 to 350, you might see 450 to 550, but it's going to maintain that 450 to 550 because it's being slowly broken down throughout time.
Okay.
So don't be alarmed. I mean, if you go in there and it's 900 parts per million, then shit.
You got a problem.
You put too much in, and now you better just water heavy. But generally, just kind of add 1 to 200 parts per million to your acceptable slurry range. So if you're used to 250, 350, 400 range, and that's always been where the health is driven, you're feeding at 1500, it's coming out to 250, 300, that's your norm, then just be prepared for 350 to 450 or 450 to 550 as your new norm with the one shot, because that one shot isn't spiking. It's not releasing in these hard levels. They're literally just slowly breaking down, slowly feeding the root zone, and the microbes are slowly digesting. So it's a very gentle 450.
So could I be underfeeding and not know as far as my liquid because I'm getting a falsely slightly higher slurry test from my one shot?
Well, if you have one shot in there, though, you're not underfeeding because they're eating.
True, but I
mean, if your plants look weird and starving, then look.
But I could maybe be pushing. I mean, what I'm saying is that I could be doing this amount of liquid or this amount of liquid and still have the same
Not necessarily,
because
if you're at 1,400 parts per million of liquid going in and you got 450 parts per million of one shot in there, and that's this too much food, this is going to go to 650.
True.
Or 750. And now you're going to start to see the plants are upset, they're overfed, or if you've been giving them, 800 parts per million of nutrition, there's 450 of one shot in the soil, and all of a sudden it's coming at 400 or 380, then they're not getting enough. It's still going to, if you're at 450, they're eating.
Okay.
They're eating.
My number's still going to drop no matter what. I'm going to be able to, I'm going to see a range, and that's just what we're talking about all the time, is you're going to see a range, you're going to feel comfortable with your range. That range may be slightly different because you've added the one shot, but you will still have a viable number that you can work with.
Yeah. Okay. And if it drops below that number, you'll see starvation or hunger, and if it goes way above that number, then you're going to see toxicity or burning.
So, if I was using my one shot, wouldn't my plant never starve, or is it like when I'm giving it so much of the other that it's increased its metabolism?
Depends on how much you give them.
Okay.
I mean, if you give them a tablespoon to 20 gallons, they're still going to starve. But if you give them, 5 pounds to 20 gallons, now there's probably enough in there to make them all the way through. The difference, I mean, it's going to grow regardless.
Sure.
That's enough. If you put a 5-pound bag into 25 pounds or 25 gallons of soil,
you're good.
Oh man, that's super soil. That's water only. But if you want to push for more oil, for more terpene profiles, for more density in the flower, that's when you add things like the liquid Herculean harvest, the Demeters, the Aphrodites, because those are going to go in and actually be that available calcium source that even one shot doesn't have a lot of. I mean, there's calcium in there, but calcium isn't very soluble, and it takes a lot to break it down. So taking one shot and then adding in your liquid calciums to that, that would work just great to creating a really nice finished product.
Okay. So if I was just using one shot, I'd still start at the start of the line and work my way up. It's not like I'd have one shot and then I have some kind of Roman stuff to add to that. I'd be still working with my my Demeters, my Athenas, Gaia, Medusa, or would you just
for sure?
Okay. So if you were going,
you just feed them less.
If you were just doing, if you did a solid one shot to where you could get all the way through, but you wanted to work on it with some liquids, would you start off with Herc or would you start off with Gaia?
Oh, Herc.
Because you've got...
Because Gaia's in there is called one shot.
I got
a different name for it, dry form.
Okay.
I mean, basically, if you took one shot and fully digested it and put it in a bottle, that's Gaia.
Okay.
I mean, it's very similar ingredients, very similar concept. The difference is this one's a time release for slow feedings, and this one it's today. So the combination, like this, the Gaia would be nice to water in for the first week, activating the one shot so that the microbes are growing, they're living. Okay. And then once they're starting to be activated, you can put the Gaia away and just hit the Herc. But, Herc's going to do the same thing. Then
if you were doing that, would you think about maybe doing some Athenas or some Demeters or some Aphrodites? Or where would you go next? Or would you just like, hey, let's just go back to doing the bottles? Are we doing too many things? Does that make any sense?
It depends on what your budget's like, how much you want to push the plants, how much you really want to focus. I mean, you can run the whole Roman schedule in one shot if you're just going nuts, but and you can't do that in a 3-gallon pot.
No,
so it's too small.
Not enough room.
No, but I mean, it's that's the nice thing is it's all so gentle. You can really play with it all. I think adding the whole Roman line to a one-shot built-up soil is just overkill. It's a waste of your money. It's a waste of your time. And now you have a lot more stuff you have to pay attention to. If you were just to take the calcium products out of the line, add it to a one-shot base soil, that would be plenty.
So every time we add a bottle, we're adding something that we got to account for that's another factor. To where we get to where it's exponentially more difficult to tell when something goes wrong?
Well, you better be paying attention. That's why you don't start with 20 bottles and say, hey, I'm a pro. I'm going to run 20 bottles because I've never used this line before. You just don't. Why would you do that? I mean, I don't put regular, premium, and mid-grade all in my tank and go, I like the mid-grade better because it makes my car run just that much smoother. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to pick your horse, see how that horse runs. If that horse is lame, then buy a new fucking horse. I just said
fuck.
Damn it. Tried to get a whole episode without it.
No, that's not ever going to happen.
Never going to happen.
NSFW, that stuff.
My poor mother.
All right. So, did I say that was Bart Johnson that asked that question? I don't remember saying who it was.
That's Bart.
Pipe North. This is the next question from Pipe. He's a good guy. He's asked a lot of questions before. Scott, the question about, hey, Scott and Bob, happy holidays. Happy holidays, Pipe. Scott, the question about foliar, calcium, and BK. Would CalCarb work? Testing CalCarb this run. Curious how it works with Trigger and BK. Thanks. Now, we got a few questions that are about mixing stuff together. So let's just dive into these. CalCarb, just on its merits. What do you think about that?
It's a decent calcium foliar, I guess. I don't. We just don't believe in calcium foliar feeds, so.
Because of the mobility of it.
It's not effective. Now it makes everything look like it has mildew on it. Now you're all sweating because you think you got mold. Because that stuff leaves a stain. It's like taking Olympus Up. Olympus Up is CalCarb. It's just a high pH CalCarb.
So it
won't work for BK. So it's not enough. You can't put enough on there. By the time you were done adding it up, it's not a bad product. It is great for mildew suppression because it raises the pH in the leaf surface, and mildew does not like that. It does add very trace amounts of calcium into the plant to allow that cellular development. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not a good balance for BK. BK needs this much calcium, and CalCarb's giving you this much calcium. And now, especially for the price, it's really expensive. I mean, it's not expensive. It's a little tiny pouch. Use a teaspoon. But if you really look at that teaspoon of calcium carbonate that you're foliar feeding with, and you look at what Microna costs, it's really expensive.
Yeah.
And it's not as effective. I mean, if you're running an NPK nutrient and you're in hydroponics and you want to prevent mildew and get a little calcium boost on the surface of the leaf, CalCarb's a great product. Okay. In a real big pinch that you can't do any more flushing or any more watering in of calcium because you're oversaturated, you got calcium deficiencies, it's in a pinch, it's a great product to kind of help set that tone for the calcium uptake. To balance bloom chaos as a foliar for growth and development, oh no, it's never even going to catch up. It can't keep up. Okay. It's not a bad product. There's nothing wrong with it. Trigger, add it to Trigger, although they're very similar products inside of them as far as calcium.
Okay.
So, I mean, Trigger will have the calcarb in it as well. But they have a microbe in it. So the difference there is their microbe can help break down that calcium on the...
So would you be using the Trigger as just a foliar, or you'd be using it, drenching it? You don't know.
I don't use their products as foliar feeds, but so a lot of people do, and it's fine. But that's fine too.
All right. Charlie, at least Isilla. We'll ask him how it's pronounced. Hey, Bob and Scott, I love the show. Got much respect. One question. I just switched to growing with just water. I ordered a bag of One Shot. Do you need to let it sit like super soil, or can you plant straight into it? My soil is 1/3 sphagnum, 1/3 cow. That must have been manure. He's doing osmosis manure, and 1/3 perlite. Thanks for the informative shows.
Sphagnum, peat moss, manure, and perlite. Well, if you haven't added that much manure yet, don't. Maybe go to a quarter.
What would you do the manure for? I mean, is that just that's earth feeding it right from the start kind of situation? But you don't
it's
feel
a lot of nitrogen.
Yeah,
and I mean, if it's not composted for three plus years, I would avoid it because you can run into all sorts of problems with pathogens, seeds, pests, whatever.
So, if you were making your own soil, what would you make your own soil out of? If you were gonna, out of
a different form of compost that isn't straight cow manure.
Okay.
Just like rabbit manure, rabbit compost, llama compost,
or some Malibu
compost. Something that's not just directly manure.
So, could you just plant right into Malibu compost or something of that nature? You need your perlite. You need some other. So
it depends on what kind of drainage you need. But I mean, basically, so let's just pretend this is compost. Let's take the manure out. So yes, let's keep it at cow manure, because if you add in One Shot, I would want to mix up the thirds and do a slurry test and see what that cow manure is registering at. If it comes in at like 800 parts per million, then don't add the One Shot. Add top dress with it later on down the road.
Okay.
If it's coming in at 200 parts per million, then add the One Shot in at 1 to 2 ounces per gallon of soil, or whatever, 1 to 2 tablespoons.
So I guess though maybe what he's kind of getting at though is that, do you need to have something juiced into your soil to get you going, or is that One Shot going to feed from day one?
If you have that manure, that's feeding you for day one. But if you didn't have that in there, it's like if you were to add, it's going to take at least a week for it to activate, solubilize, and start to break down.
So if you were in cocoa or something like that.
But if you're in a seedling, you're not feeding them anyway. So you're not putting a seedling in and then giving them, mid-veg feeding schedule. So I think, in all intents and purposes, if you take a clone, drop it into a mix that has One Shot in this ratio, and we know that the manure isn't hot, then it's totally safe. I mean, I've planted clones in One Shot, like in a bag of them, and watered them. They didn't love it, but they didn't burn up, they didn't die, they didn't go crazy. They just went, this sucks.
This is not my optimal environment.
See you next year.
That's my favorite. I love that.
I said that to your wife.
So let me ask you this then. I forgot what I was going to ask you. What would be your microbial strategy with something like this, or would you have to have some sort of microbial strategy with this game?
Well, I mean, we put bacteria from worm castings and mycorrhizal fungus in there, so you got those two. That cow manure is going to have a crap ton of microbes in it, so you probably don't need a lot there. Yes, I would always be adding some type of compost tea. It makes everything more efficient, especially when you're working with just meals and just water.
Do you think that a good compost tea will help deal with issues that you might have with your bad manure? Good microbes beating up the bad microbes kind of situation?
It depends on how many bad microbes you're starting with versus how many good microbes you're starting with. If it's like a 10-to-1 ratio, then
it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a fight.
No, it's always beneficial to put beneficial bugs in, because they will take out a lot of the... Like all predator bugs versus,
bad bugs.
Yeah, but what's the word there?
Beneficials
and parasitic, or predator. So you can always tell which one's the predator and which one is the one that's being the problem, the pest, because the predators are faster. And that's it. Well, that's it.
That's
I mean,
job.
you look on the root surface, if you see a mite that's flying across there, that's not the bad mite. That's the good mite trying to eat all the bad mites. So somewhere the creator said, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make the good guys faster than the bad guys. And the bad guys are going to be fatter, so they'll be easier to take out. And we'll be able to cut their throats just from running up behind them. Wait, that's a different world.
That's a different thing.
But no, that's real.
Yeah,
so
that's real.
So yeah, I mean, to help with ideally the cow manure compost is super. I mean, he may live in the Midwest where they've got 30 years of fucking compost built up, and then that's some great stuff. So it's just around here we don't get a lot of good cow manure that's aged, composted right. I mean.
So it takes years and years for the good guys to win in that pile of compost, I guess is what you're saying. That they eventually will prevail.
Well, and more importantly, it's getting rid of all this stuff, the urine nitrates, and it's getting rid of the excess salts that come from cow digestive systems.
So time is your friend with a compost. You can do it perfectly, but you can also win through just doing it for so long.
Well, time is your friend if you don't like composting, because nature will compost itself.
Yeah.
Now, if you go with somebody like Malibu, who is out there
on it
5 to 7 times a week,
rolling it over, measuring the temperature. Yeah.
So they take composting to a level where they can take this 30-year compost and bust that out in less than 3 months, because they're intensively composting and they're doing it all through mechanisms. So there's definitely different ways. I mean, I get a lot of people that say, even with Malibu compost, we've gotten weed seeds, we've had these issues from different, you have to cut these people a break. They don't have their own bagging line. They don't have their own facility. They literally pick up these great composted manures from around the regions. They bring them to a local bagger in town, and, that local bagger is also a giant municipal waste dump. So, yes, they have the tools, they have the machinery to make Malibu stuff go into bags, but there's also a cross-contamination piece that's potentially there from, what somebody brought in from their yard. That weed seed could be flying into their compost bins before they're actually being bagged. So I don't ever put blame on...
They're doing the best they can.
They really, truly are doing a really nice compost job. And probably the best bagged compost you can get out there right now as far as just a marketed... good compost.
Something that you can actually go buy pretty much anywhere that's still a good
pretty
product.
Consistent, yeah. So if you get a couple seeds here and there, that's not the end of the world. They're just seeds. Get over it. Just don't let them grow. Weed them.
Is that a lot of perlite? A third perlite?
No, I mean, we put that.
That's about right.
About 33% in ours.
Cool.
A lot of people go up to 50%, so...
And this is a drainage issue.
It's just drainage. If you're using a compost, heavy compost, even with Malibu, you want to put a lot of perlite in Malibu.
You might want to go
drainage.
more, maybe.
Possibly. Depends on your peat moss, what kind of peat you're using.
Now, would you re-amend that soil with more manure or more whatever you're going to put in as you go? I mean...
One shot.
Because it seems like the perlite grows in proportion over time, because it doesn't drain. It doesn't go out the bottom of your pot, but the other stuff kind of does slowly.
Well, perlite is a rock.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not going anywhere.
But eventually, you would have just a bucket of rocks there over 100 years.
Well, yeah, but if you're reusing your soil that often, then you should quit growing.
You should quit growing.
Because seriously, you're a cheap ass bastard. Because you are. Stop asking questions because you just don't want to grow. Just stick one, move to the fucking equator, put one in the ground. It'll be fine. Shit will be perennials down there.
This is a great place to grow.
Yeah.
State Road 84. Statey, what's up? He's got a question.
See, that's why Jason hates your voice.
I can't help it. I can't help it.
I know.
All right.
Ever since that helium accident in '02.
That's a great story for being a superhero.
Wasn't it?
The helium accident that made him strong but gave him a wimpy voice. State Road 84 says, Bob, I received the Megafoss as a giveaway from you. Back when we were doing the Megafoss thing with Carl. What's up with Carl? I haven't seen Carl in a while.
I got a nice note from Carl, actually. Yeah, bless his heart. I mean, he's Carl. He does his thing.
He's out doing his thing.
He truly is a genuine soul.
All right, back to it.
Yeah.
Because can I use, so he's talking about the Megaphos, can I use that in my Bloom teas in combination with Easy Tea Bloom, SL F100, and Photo Plus?
Yep.
So, yeah, but just me personally, I would say that the Megaphos is kind of like a Mammoth Pea or something like that, a phosphorus uptake enhancer kind of thing, very specialized type stuff. And that, yeah, it's going to work fine with all these things, but boy, you start getting 10 bottles, 15 bottles, 20 bottles. You don't want to get too much creep here. I would probably be using the teas and then maybe Photo Plus once in a while and then the SLF all the time, and try not to use all this stuff constantly. What do you think about that?
Diversity's good when it comes to organisms.
But would you say diversity over the life of the plant, not hitting it with every single thing every single time is what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It seems like it gets out of hand at some points.
Well, it all does.
Yeah.
So, SLF I would use all the time.
Yes.
Photo Plus I would use with my feeds, unless I have no Easy Tea Blooms or Megaphosses or of these powders or compost tea for that day. Then I'd use it as a tea day. But I would use Photo Plus and SLF as my regular feed waterings.
Okay.
And Photo Plus, really, I'd be doing like mid-veg through the early part of bloom and then just shut it down.
Okay.
And then Megaphos could step into that afterwards.
Okay.
Basically, it's what I would do is lay out my microbes.
Okay.
I would get out my computer and I'd research each one on their most efficient stage of the plant's life that they should be inoculated with.
Okay.
All of these, when you're using Nectar and you're using One Shot and you're using our soils, you're not killing the microbes you add back into the medium. So adding them every single time with every single watering, with the exception of SLF, because with SLF we're just putting more calcium in, we're trying to keep that digestion going. But everything else is an inoculation. So when you inoculate, the whole point of inoculating is to put it in the hopes that it goes in and multiplies and thrives.
Does its thing. Yeah.
And then if all you're doing is taking Easy Tea Bloom and pumping it through veg and bloom in the whole cycle, you're only building one form of microorganism or one colony or one group of colonies that never is diverse. So you may be missing on a whole mineral base of nutrition over here because you're only running A through C of microbes. Well, if you add in D with Megaphos, well, shoot, all of a sudden this whole bank of nutrition becomes available. So going back and forth with some of them where you do, so we'll go with Easy Teas.
Yeah.
And not photo. Let's say Easy Teas and Photo Plus, Easy Tea Veg, Photo Plus in veg.
Right. Okay.
So I do that for 2 weeks in a row. Then the next week I might come in and do Green Sea or whatever. I'm just thinking of a microbe company.
Herb? Do they make no?
Basically, adding in. Adding in a different microbe, adding in my own compost tea from worm castings or Malibu compost, adding in, just making it diverse. So what I'm doing, day one, I'm putting in A through C of microbes.
Right. Yeah.
6 days later, I'm putting in C through E. Well, these C through E are going to help balance A through C because these microbes are going to go in. These have gotten overpopulated. These guys are going to come in and start eating some of these guys down. And they start balancing each other. So by adding diversity in all the time, you're creating a way more balanced microbial field that will keep things more efficiently moving into the plant,
as opposed to some kind of Thunderdome situation when you dump it all in at the same time.
Well, when you dump it all in the same time, you end up Thunderdome's in the bucket. It's not in the root zone because they're attacking each other at the food source. So it's not necessarily a good thing to add them all in at once because it's. And again, going back to what you're saying is throwing them all in. You don't know what you've done. So if you just go, well, I'm going to get started and I'm going to throw all my microbes in. Well, which microbe did what, and how did you witness that? How do you know that that's a beneficial product to you if you don't see a result from adding just one more component? When you add extra things to your recipe, do them one at a time, and ideally do it for a whole cycle without adding anything else, so you know that adding this 27th part made this happen. Well, but if you had 27 parts at the get-go, you don't know what any of them do. You don't know what's going on. Yeah. And that goes with everything.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. All right. Wabasso for Life says, can I use Nectar pH up and pH down with other nutrients other than Nectar? Let me guess. Up, yes, down, or down, yes, up, no.
Yeah. Well, first off, I want to know what Wabasso is, because if he's that for life, I want to know what
I want to know what that is. If he's committed to something like that, it's probably cool.
Yeah, maybe it's a woman who got married to this dude named John Wabasso, and she's down for life with this bro.
That could be.
Or
it could be something we don't know about.
From a different region.
Being wildly inappropriate right now.
Just wonder what Wabasso is.
I would like to know.
I would like to be for life of that.
Comment with what the story is. Everyone should have to comment with what the story with their name is.
Well, maybe we'll have a contest, and the winner wins a hoodie or something. So
that's a great idea.
For all of January, when you make a comment and you ask your question,
put why you got your handle, what it's about.
At the end, put your handle and what it's about.
We're gonna judge.
We will judge.
We will judge you. As you are judging us right now.
Oh yeah, and we've read them, and they're not nice.
So, but what is the down and what is the up?
So,
because the down is just down, right? It's
the down is
similar to everyone's down.
Yeah, it's just it's phosphoric acid, fulvic, and citric. So it can be used with any other nutrient line, no problems. It's probably more expensive than any other nutrient lines. pH down. Most nutrient lines will just use straight phosphoric acid and water.
But that's not good enough for you, no.
Well, it's not gentle enough for nutrient. I mean, it's not a gentle microbial pH reducer. So ours isn't as active. I mean, it's not as strong because we don't want it to be strong because it kills stuff. So if you're using advanced nutrients 0,55,0 phosphoric acid, well, that's concentrated phosphoric. Yeah. One drop is going to drop you. And when you come at me going, your stuff takes so much more to drop the pH, you're welcome because I didn't kill your microbes in doing so. Theirs will destroy your microbial field with one watering. So there's the difference. If you're running GH, Botanicare, Mills, any of these other nutrient lines, run advanced nutrients pH down because it's the most effective, most affordable, and you're not growing microbes anyway, so you're not going to kill anything. If you're running BioBiz, Earth Juice, Down to Earth, Super Soils, our pH down is going to be gentler on the microbials that you've built into the soil because the citric and fulvic are going to be the pH adjusters more than it is going to be the phosphoric acid. It's still got phosphoric acid in it. It's just not as heavy and strong, so it won't shock and kill.
Okay. Is down more common with some other lines that you need down more so?
Well, most people water in it. Well, no, because pH perfect. All these pH perfect lines are basically just NPK nutrient lines that are running between 5.5 and 6.2. So most people don't even run a lot of pH adjusters in synthetic nutrients. It really depends on their water at that point.
Oh, okay.
There's base water.
You're adjusting your water, not your new. Yeah.
Our Olympus Up will not work good with most synthetic lines.
It's a different principle
it's
entirely.
Limestone,
right?
So it's a calcium carbonate. It goes in. It's literally. I mean, it's calcium. It's going to lock up. And the whole thing we do with flushing with bone meal. The whole action with calcium phosphate from bone and calcium carbonate from limestone is we're reacting to the sodium in the soil with these calcium forms. So if you take a whole nutrient base of GH and you get your parts per million up to 1,200 parts per million for your feed, and then you dump pH up into it with ours, you can watch it. It turns to string cheese. It literally just starts. You can see it reacting. And the chemistry of it will not... It'll raise your pH, but it's going to lock out their nutrition, so your plants aren't going to get the food that they designed their food to do. So I wouldn't use our line. Our pH up will work good with your well water and super soils. Okay. Because it's not going to harm anything in the microbes. It's going to be a soluble form of calcium for the plants. A BioBiz line, something that's more on the organic natural side, down to earth. I mean, earth juice stuff. Any of the natural liquid products it will work with, but anything that's even remotely synthetic, it will tie up stuff.
So the up, probably not, but the down does have some value to other lines and being more gentle if you're worried about a microbial field.
But why are you worried? Why
wouldn't you just go get some...
Advanced nutrients, 0,55,0. I mean, that shit is like... Down. Done. And it's pure phosphorus. So for those who really need the phosphorus, there you go. 0,55,0. You can't beat that. And your plant loves 55% phosphorus.
Okay. That's that.
That's that.
Yeah. Unless you want to deal with this one.
Well, I say we try it because I don't know. So
this is from Lurking Line 703. Lurking Line 703. The name's so nice, he said it twice. He says, "Hello, guys. Love the episode. I have a question for the next viewer question episode. I'm getting ready to start my first run with Nectar, and I'm so excited I can't wait. I wanted to know if I can still use a few of the products that I have left over from my last run with Nectar. See, he's just trying to work through this stuff. See?
Yeah.
With no side effects, harm issues to the plants in the Nectar line. And he's got a bunch of them listed, and we can kind of go through them. But there's a bunch here. Organic Care Calplex, Organic Care Vega, Terpenator, Easy Wet SE, Solar Gaia, Sugary, a lot of stuff. So
Massive, Green Grow, SLF.
Well, let's just take that Green Grow thing and leave that for
but that's a huge part of it.
Well, okay, so let's just get into that. So he's also talking
let's just
about
start here.
Okay, you go.
You've got a lot of products. You should just finish those because there's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of duplication. There's a lot of chemistry that's going to happen. There's a lot of products that you're never going to know what Nectar is capable of doing. By adding all of this stuff, you honestly will never know what your base of Nectar is. And this isn't an attack, but the whole point of Nectar is we took the whole industry that we've worked in for 25 years, that we've been fed up with for 25 years, and we designed something. And we designed it around all the failures that we've seen in our industry and said, these are all things that are just repetitive, over-marketed. They're highly marketed products. Let's do something that's a little different, and we're going to make a calcium-based line that's going to be all-encompassing of what the plant needs for nutrition, and do it in a gentle, safe manner. So if you're just getting ready to start with Nectar, either run a side-by-side with what you're used to doing with all these additives. I mean, you're using good products, so at least the conscience is there. I mean, good products
cobbled together the Nectar line in a different way. He's got a semi-complete situation here.
Well, you have a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense to use with Nectar because it doesn't. It's repetitive. It's canceling. It's.
But if you're not using Nectar, this is a decent setup he's got going.
It's not a bad setup at all. You probably have grown some really good fire. There's no question. But to add all our stuff to all this stuff, it's insanity. It just doesn't need to be. So what I would highly recommend is stick with what you've been doing on half your garden or most of your garden, and then take just the sample kit of what we do and put it into neutral soil or gentle soil and feed it by recipe, and then after a first round, do some stuff, then start going, what can I add here and there? I can tell you, things like Terpenator, it's a 60-40. 60% of the people hate it, 40% love it with our line. So I won't weigh in. I don't use it.
But you certainly would get a base of just using the Nectar before you started to put any of this stuff back into it, and you wouldn't try to fill in with this.
I wouldn't use Organic Care Calplex because we use so much calcium. Their calcium isn't going to benefit you at all from what we have in. We already have calcium carbonate. Magnesium we get naturally from the soil, so there's no necessarily need for it unless you got, like you said, you might have an OG that's super cal hungry or mag hungry. Then use their mag, or go down and use Cutting Edge's mag amp. Or simply use Epsom salt. I mean, it's that easy. Terpenator, from what I'm hearing, I'm not a fan of it. I don't use it, but our customer base is not a fan.
Some people do like it.
Yeah, I mean, if you need a terpene enhancer, I would look at terpenes as an additive. I mean, I've just started playing with that one. It's a nice product. It smells freaking great. I know a couple big farmers who use it that make their product way better.
But you may find that you get terpenes up the kazoo just from using the Nectar, and you're happy with what you got.
That's what we stand by. Easy Wet. I mean, if you want their form, it's another yucca. That's a Hygeia. So, you can use that instead of Hygeia, but whatever.
Sugary.
Well, then there's the Massive. I've heard very mixed results with our line and Massive on people, so I can't weigh in on that because I don't use it, so I can't give you a source on that, but I've heard mixed from many customers. Solar Gaia is just another, it's humic acid, but Zeus is pure humic acid with no water, and it's so there's a total redundancy there. Sugary next to Aphrodite's, people use them together. There's nothing wrong with Sugary. It's a great product. Aphrodite's, the Herculean Harvest, Triton's Troll, all those are creating the same concept. So if you're already using them, it might be a redundancy that's probably too much. Then you get into the world of green grow stuff. On a weekly top dress, you're putting a lot of food in by doing that. So you build the soil with it, which is great. Green grow is a good product. He definitely knows his microbes. but that's a food source. So now if you're adding in Gaia Medusa, you're adding in Athenas, you're adding in, more of our base nutrients, now you're just doubling, tripling up on the same food sources that are in Green Grow's stuff. The only difference is ours is 100% available now versus his is being broken down through the microbes they add, but in tandem, they're going to build up on each other.
Yeah. And you don't know where you're at with that buildup. What
are your parts per million at that level?
Yeah.
If you're adding them weekly, you might run into issues of being overfed, lockouts. The hard part about locking out when you're doing dry amendments is they're really hard to get unlocked because there's so much material in there you can't flush them efficiently. Okay. And I'm not saying Green Grow specifically. I'm just saying when you keep top dressing dry goods, well, that's eventually going to be too much dry goods. The plants aren't eating all that Green Grow in 16 weeks.
It's building up. And you don't know when it's building up because you're slowly going through it. So you got not enough, too much.
Yeah.
It's an art to doing just that.
So with Green Grow, if you're doing that, and I've seen this a bunch with a lot of farms, is running Green Grow's line and then running just the liquid calcium forms of our products. So using the Demeters, the Herc, the Tritons, the Aphrodites, with Green Grow being the base in the soil, or One Shot being the base in the soil.
Okay.
You have that same thing like we talked about on the other guy's question. You build your super soil with your One Shot or your Green Grow or whatever. Then you just hit them with the liquid forms of calcium that are in neither Green Grow or One Shot. I mean, there's calcium in both of them. They're not soluble. They're not 100% available. So the plant's always going to be struggling to get more calcium while they're getting your NP and K from the Green Grow and the One Shot. Okay. So using all this stuff and all my stuff on Green Grow is just... I mean, we love you because you like to spend money on your grow, but you could really simplify it. I personally would say run our sample kit on the side. Run this stuff, use it up on the side. When those things start running out, you can look at what of ours can be supplemented to make up for those losses. But I wouldn't add all that stuff to ours and then try to get a good picture of what ours is capable of doing.
You got too many variables here.
You have the alphabet, and this is a lot of info. So that's a tough question because individually, each and every one of those things can be used with our line safely. Using all of that with all of ours and all of Green Grow, that's just way too much stuff, and you literally be pulling your hair out when you run into a wall of what the heck is happening to my plants.
If anything goes wrong, you'll have no idea what it is. Too
much chemistry going on. So, I mean, if you put all of this away in a cabinet, started with our nutrient line, and if you ran out of Zeus, then run the Solar Gaia. Until that runs out, then buy more Zeus. Or if you run out of Aphrodites, run the Sugaree. But there's no point in running all of them because it's literally just redundancy at that point.
Okay.
So that's my 2 cents.
All right. That's the show. I think it was a good one.
But this is your last show.
Last show?
Of the year.
Of the year? Time to pause and reflect, maybe. Think about how we can take it up a notch for next year.
No.
Let's maintain this level.
Because how many more shows you have then?
I don't know.
This is our last viewer show. Because today's Friday.
Well, I'll probably stop by and say, hey, but I don't do official shows. I just kind of, chat with them on Monday and Tuesday.
Those are shows.
Those are shows. So yes,
on Monday and Tuesday, you have your New Year's Day and your New Year's Eve show.
Well, so one more show. There's one more show of the year after this one.
New Year's Eve.
On New Year's Eve. And then there's...
What's that going to be? Strip club show?
I'm not stripping down. I might do a little dance.
You going to show your man boobies? Oh, God. Well, now we just got fucking banned from YouTube.
Well, that solves the problem.
So I got this guy. Let's see if this question is good. Oh, that's your question.
If we keep going, I can make it into 2 episodes, and that'll take me into the new year.
Well, I've been talking with Alan Murphy.
I don't know who that is.
He was part of our 12 Days of Christmas.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And he had a couple emails yesterday I never got back to, and so I finally got back to him this morning. And he wanted to upgrade his teas. And for his tea days, he does 1 to 2 tablespoons of Herculean, pH to 6.4, and then 10 mils of SLF.
For his tea day.
For his tea day, which I said, honestly, I would use that as my flush day because that would be a great flush. So for flush days, follow the flush recipe. Flush, Herc tea recipe.
So, but he's not actually doing a tea. He's doing some sort of microbial thing, or he's doing no microbials?
Well, and I think the problem is that we're getting the word tea really messed up in our conversation between Alan and I. Because I think, to me, a tea is just microbes in water added into the soil.
To other people,
a lot of people, tea is I'm brewing up 6 product lines from you guys, and so my Herc Aphrodite's is my tea for today. Let's call that soup from now on. No. So for regular tea days, basically, for flush days, follow the flush recipe. The flush recipe in my book is 1 to 2 tablespoons of Herc. SLF, possibly Aphrodite's if you want, depending on slurry numbers. But if I'm just doing a feed, flush, my feed is recipe. Flush is Herkin, whatever. SLF, Herkin, whatever. Aphrodite's, Olympus, pH. Then it goes feed, which is recipe. And then tea. And tea is compost tea, microbial teas, life forms. So then he says, now for regular tea days, what would be the ratio to a gallon? So mammoth tea, I would run there whatever they say. What is it, 1 to 5 mils? I don't know.
They jumped it up, I think. It's like 8 maybe or something.
So stick to 5 mils. Herculean, leave it out because you're not feeding them microbes right now. Or you're feeding the microbes. You're making a microbial tea. Photosynthesis is fine to use with the mammoth. And I would run 3 to 5 mils per gallon of that. And ideally, if your water, because he's also going to then pH it to 6.4, it's like, well...
Is pH in his tea?
But he's asking. He's
using Herc into it, so he has to when he's doing that. But if you weren't doing the Herc...
So, depending on and I'll answer him via email, but So figure out what your water is on your tea day. If your water is 6.5 and you add all these microbes in, just water it. Don't even worry about the pH at that point. You're not feeding calcium at that point. We're not trying to get calcium available to the plant at the time of watering. So
try not to kill anything.
Yeah, the microbes. Once you add the microbes in and you flash them with any type of pH adjuster, you just killed everything.
So you do it before if you had to do it, but only if you have a water issue. If your water's, would you say, in the 6s or
7.5, if it's above 7.7 or below 6.0, then adjust your pH first, then add your microbes, and then water it in. Because microbes and pH they're not friends when you're adjusting them fast. So it's like taking a guy from Barrel, Alaska, and dropping him in at the equator. And going, here
you go. We're going to run down this beach.
We're going to go down there and catch that fish on the shore there. And vice versa.
Here's a piece of bamboo.
A guy from some village in southern Mexico and drop him up in Barrel, Alaska.
He'll be fine.
Probably.
It doesn't go both ways.
No, it's only one way. The cold guys just don't like it.
It's going to be fine. He might be a little grumpy, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah.
Okay.
There's that. You may use that. You may not.
You may not. Or might. I probably will.
You probably will. Because he uses anything.
For more information about anything on today's show, go to our website, OCGFAM.com. And if you buy anything while you're there, use the code FAM20. It's going to save you 20%, and it's a lot of fun. The OCG Fam Show. It's pretty good. It happens every day. It's the OCG Fam Show. See you on Monday.